Well, welcome to Train Tuesday. I'm your host, Jim Wiggin, and so glad you could join us. If you're joining us live on the live feed, thank you for joining us. We'll do some shout outs here in a second. If you're catching us on YouTube later on and you like what you're seeing here, I hope you'll go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell, that way you know every time a new video just like this ends up on our channel. We're going to be talking Athearn Genesis tonight. We're going to be talking HO scale, and we're going to be talking N scale. Now, N scale guys, listen up. If you say that Athearn never offers modern-ish N scale, well, tonight we will. If you're saying we're never doing new N scale, well, tonight we will. If you're saying we're never doing undecorated in N scale, well, tonight we will. So we'll be talking about that. So if you're an N scale fan, go ahead and sit there and be prepared to see some really cool stuff that the product development team has been working on. Until then, let's do some shout outs, and let's see who I have joining us here tonight. I see Willie, Sid, John, Harold, Brian, DG Model Works is in the house, Model Railroader, Chessie, David, Richard, Benjamin, Ted, Abel, Anthony, Glenn, Howard, Williams, Charles. There is a lot tonight. I want to make sure I get as many as possible. Charles, John, Bearzilla, Mr. David Reynolds is here. Ronald, David, Kasparian, thank you for joining us tonight. John and Jason, just to name a few. That was a big chunk of them. So if I didn't call your name, please don't be offended. We've got a lot of people joining us right now. And like I said, if you miss the online live version, you can definitely catch us afterwards on YouTube. Now, I do apologize. We had an Athearn Extra last Thursday. I interviewed John Gardberger of the Rocky Mountain Train Show, and StreamYard, which is the service that we use to do these videos that you see currently, was experiencing a problem with the Facebook integration. So something beyond our control, unfortunately. So a lot of you guys that were waiting for the live feed on Facebook never got to see that happen. So if you missed that video, you can go to our YouTube channel. It's under the Athearn Extra category, and you can see that interview with John, and hopefully I'll get to see you at the Rocky Mountain Train Show. So let's get started with some Athearn train goodness on this Tuesday. We're going to start in HO scale, and we're going to start with the SD70 series of locomotive. Now, continuing upon the successful SD60 series, EOD debuted the next step in locomotive evolution with the SD70 series in 1992. Now, outwardly, they appear very similar. At first glance, both the SD60M and the SD70M look pretty much the same. However, there are some spotting features and external design refinements from the predecessor model. Now, a couple of those are the battery boxes. They were relocated to the left-hand side of the walkway and immediately behind the cab. A large, boxy forward traction motor blower housing replaced the angular version that had been used previously on the SD60s. Also, that raised walkway duct that was on the left-hand side walkway, that was eliminated. And an intake for the rear traction motor blower on the left-hand side of the car body. Directly under the rear radiator intake grill, that was added. So some spotting features the next time you're out there rail fanning, and keep in mind Union Pacific was the largest customer of the EMD SD70s. We'll talk about some of their different versions as well over the course of the years since 1992. Now the one that you see on your screen currently, this is from the last run. This is an SD70M, and it is Union Pacific. This was the We Are One 1979 locomotive that they unveiled a couple of years ago. Really cool locomotive. This thing sold out super quick. You might still be able to find a few of these hanging on online or at your local hobby shop. If you want to add this distinctive locomotive to your fleet, the item number on this is ATHG 75818. Again, that's ATHG 75818. Really cool locomotive, a really nice gesture on Union Pacific's part, acknowledging the many people that make up The Union Pacific is more than just the machines, but it's the people that run the company. Let's talk now about what we're going to be offering for the month of April. Now, everything that I'm going to be talking about tonight, you have until Friday, the 26th of April, to place your pre-orders. Now, it's no surprise, I'm sure. We're going to start off with Union Pacific. Now, within UP's large fleet of SD70Ms, variations exist in paintwork as well as build details. Later production units featured modified cabs and also had flared radiators. Now, there have been some recent repaints featuring the American flag and the Building America slogan, and these three examples are certainly no exception. At the top of your screen, you'll see SD70M number 3971, which is a 2015 era locomotive. It has replacement equipment doors under the cab, hence the lighter yellow, pretty common with these, and a K3LA horn. Next, we have the SD70M 3973. This is a late 2000s, and it too will have replacement equipment doors under the cab. It will also have a K3LA horn and PTC antennas. Finally, 4354 represents a unit as it appeared in 2013 on up. It will have the flat radiators. This one will have a non-standard K5LA horn, PTC antennas, and you'll notice that the repainted flag and Building American slogan are a little bit different than the previous two. It's a little bit different from the other ones. Those are the kinds of things, even though Union Pacific is usually blamed to having a very rather homogeneous paint scheme, there are some subtle details that you'll pick up. So some things to look for when you're rail fanning next time. Now, these will all have the same features, including front pilot-mounted ditch lights, a 5,000-gallon fuel tank, and the front EMD low snowplow. Now, we're not done with Union Pacific, and we know a lot of guys have been asking for more Prime for Grime. Now, these represent mid-2010 era Prime for Grime Union Pacifics. Now, remember what I was saying, Union Pacific had by far the largest fleet of SD70Ms, eventually acquiring up to 1,452 of them. As some of these units approach, it seems hard to believe, 25 years in service, time and the elements have taken their toll on the paintwork, and certainly these two locomotives are no exception. SD70M number 4090 is also going to have the replacement equipment doors under the cab. So again, lighter yellow, faded out. They've been taken from another unit. A replacement door under the right side radiator section with partial Building America lettering, and a replacement first radiator fan. If you look carefully, you can see that first radiator fan on the top is a slightly different hewn shade of gray. Well, that's slightly faded paintwork. Likewise, 4293, that's going to have peeling paint on the top of the cab and the car body and slightly faded paintwork. So that armor yellow has definitely lightened up a little bit. Now, the features on these two locomotives include they're both flat radiator SD70Ms. They're going to include PTC antennas. They're going to have front round top ditch lights. They're both going to feature K3LA horns, standard sunshades, freight style brake wheel, and a standard bell. Now let's move on to something that even if you don't think you need an SD70, we've got some lease units for you. We've got two for Progress Rail Services Corporation. These are relatively modern. These are 2021. In addition to being a subsidiary of Caterpillar since 2006, Progress Rail Services, or their reporting marks are PRLX, has offered a wide variety of used EMD locomotives for lease, including these former Norfolk Southern SD70M locomotives. So here you go. Here's an option to add two of these lease locomotives, especially if you're a modern railroad. And these are both former Norfolk Southern, so SD70M 2636 is former Norfolk Southern 2636, and 2643 likewise is former Norfolk Southern 2643. Now, the features specific for these two locomotives include a front plow, Nathan K5LAR24 horn, flared 4-panel radiators, offset turbocharger doors, front and rear deck-mounted ditch lights, and spare knuckles on the rear pilot. Now, the next one probably came to for many of you as a surprise, a very happy surprise. We had many requests for this, and we finally got to address those requests. So we're happy to show the R.J. Corman. This is a brand new locomotive, really, 2023 era. R.J. Corman Railroad operates 19 shoreline railroads covering 1,350 miles of track in 11 different states. R.J. Corman acquired a group of former Norfolk Southern SD70M units in 2023. Now, there's going to be a total of 4 units represented in this run. We have 1973 and 2023. These are the special 50th anniversary paint scheme. And then we're offering 2 standard paint schemes, 2645 and 2648. Pictured 2645 has that standard paint scheme. It's going to have large cab numbers. Not seen, but can be seen at Athearn.com, 2648 features the standard paint scheme, but has small cab side numbers. Now, the features on these 4 locomotives being offered for R.J. Corman include flared 4-panel radiators, PTC antennas, K5LA horns, front and rear ditch lights. And if you get the Tsunami 2, this is a big question that we get a lot of times. These will have the alternating or wigwag ditch lights once the horn is depressed. That's again, if you have the Tsunami 2. So if you push the horn button, they're going to alternate, they're going to wigwag. Sticking in the Midwest, actually not too far from Athearn headquarters, is Indiana Railroad. This is a Class 2 railroad. The Indiana Railroad operates several lines in Indiana and Illinois, over 500 miles of track. Most of it is former Illinois Central Gulf. Now, they're headquartered in Indianapolis. They also reach Chicago via trackage rights and have connections with most Class 1 railroads. Indiana Railroad acquired several former Norfolk Southern SD70M units not too long ago, actually just last year in 2023. We're going to be offering 3 road numbers of the Indiana Railroad, 7003, 7004, and 7008. So this is a great time to pick up all 3 units. Now, the features for Indiana Railroad on these 3 units, they're all going to be flared 4-panel radiators, PTC antennas will be included, K5LA horns, front and rear ditch lights, and they are also going to have the wigwag or the alternating ditch lights when the horn is pressed if you go with the Tsunami 2 version. Now the next one, we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to go back to 1997. I actually remember when these were new on BNSF property, back then known as Burlington Northern Santa Fe, not changing their name simply to BNSF until 2005. At 4,300 horsepower, the SD75i offered a 300 horsepower increase over the previous SD70 locomotives. In addition to the increase in power, the I models featured an isolated cab, which reduced noise and vibration. Now, this type of cab is recognized by a seam separating the nose and cab components. The seam is the rubber that dampens the vibration and cuts down on noise because the cab is not attached directly to the frame on the unit. Really neat locomotive. I remember when these were brand new and were on the system, they were delivered in the Super Fleet colors that you see here. And we're going to be offering 3 different road numbers. These are going to be factory fresh. So if you're modeling the early days of Burlington Northern Santa Fe, you're going to want to pick up all 3 road numbers. Road numbers include 8282, 8285, and 8298. Now the features on the SD70Is include a front plow, Nathan K3LA 3-chime horn on a square bracket, isolated cab, of course, turbo bulge, 4-step Santa Fe BNSF style walkway, front deck mounted ditch lights, and spare knuckles on the rear pilot. Now our last 2 railroads to feature, in this case they're going to be SD70Ms, are legendary liveries. And I know this is a trigger warning for some of you guys. You guys either hate these things or you love these things. I have to tell you that legendary liveries, they still sell. Sometimes they outsell the prototype models. Why is that? I don't know. I'm a prototype modeler myself, but I'm not going to let my biases dictate what sells for Athearn and shortchange any of you that like these. Now, we're going to start with the Western Pacific. The Western Pacific, of course, is a beloved fallen flag road. They were well known for their rugged route of hosting the famed California Zephyr passenger train. Although the WP ceased to exist as a standalone entry in 1982, with these SD70M units, the Feather River route can still exist in modern times on your model Pike. Now, you may be asking yourself, six-axle locos on the WP? Of course, in its time, the WP was an exclusive user of four-axle power. However, six-axle power was used on run-through trains over the Western Pacific without incident. So these units will be right at home, especially with their radial trucks. We're going to offer two road numbers in the really cool Western Pacific paint scheme that you see here, 3703 and 3707. The features that both of these locomotives will include: flat radiators, M5 horns, front round top ditch lights, standard sunshades, freight style brake wheel, and a standard bell. One that could have been, but didn't, is the Arizona and California. That's the next one that you see on your screen there. The Arizona and California, originally known as the Arizona and California Railway, was initially constructed in the early 20th century, and its original main line opened in 1907, connecting Matthey with Parker, Arizona. Shortly after the railroad began operations, it became an affiliate of the Santa Fe and eventually became wholly owned by the much larger Class 1. Now, by the late 1980s, the Santa Fe was looking to shed unprofitable, low-density branch and secondary lines along its system. This would include the former A&C lines, which was then sold to David Parkinson of the Park Sierra Rail Group in May 1991. The line's motive power was then painted in the attractive green and cream livery of this company. Now, while the ARZC is now owned by Genesee and Wyoming, we're offering these What If SD70Ms in the popular Park Sierra Rail Group green and cream scheme, as seen here. So here you have unit number 1000. We're also going to offer 1002. So if you want to carry on the Arizona and California like they never got assimilated into the Genesee and Wyoming group, here you are. Now, the features of these locomotives will include flat radiators, M5 horns, front round top ditch lights, standard sunshades, freight style brake wheel, and a standard bell. Now, if you're not familiar with our SD70s in the Genesis line, we're going to go back and show you some of the details of the actual model. This is an SD70M, again, 1979, that we offered in our last run. Now, some of the details, and you can find complete details at athearn.com under the new announcements tab, but just a very few of the details that are included with these models: detailed fuel tank with fuel filler, fuel gauges and breather pipes, EMD HTC air trucks, early with hidden bearings or late with exposed bearings per the prototype. Of course, there is a see-through cab windows that has a full cab interior, and the list goes on. Now, you can get these DCC ready, or you can also get them DCC decoders with Tsunami 2 already installed and with sound. Now, for pricing, you need to contact your dealer. You've probably noticed that on our PDFs, we no longer include the pricing. We're doing that so that way you are motivated to go to your hobby shop and ask your dealer for your price. The MSRP numbers, quite frankly, we're scaring some people. So go contact your dealer, whether your dealer be online or as close as just a drive away. So there you have it, the SD70 series that we're going to be offering for the month of April. You have until Friday, April 26th to place your pre-orders. If there are any questions about the SD70s. If there are other questions outside of the SD70s, try to save those for the end of the program. St. Crow's got a cool comment. Seen one of the few surviving Arizona, California scheme SD45s in Wisconsin. Almost thought it was an executive Mac at first. Yeah, that's true. That would have been cool. I hope you got pictures of it. Let's see. No CSX SD70Ms this run, but maybe next time. Maybe next run. Jesse says, I kind of like the Indiana Railroad units. Yeah, that was actually one that we had a lot of requests through the product suggestion email. That and the RJ Corman. Let's see what other questions we have. Going back a little bit here. A lot of folks, a lot of you guys out there saying that you like the Western Pacific unit, so that's cool. Glad to see that. Like I said, the legendary liveries, that's not everybody's cup of tea, but we realize a lot of folks really do like those, so we're going to keep offering them. Charles Wood saying he really loves those RJ Corman SD70M locomotives. Yeah, that was another one that we got a lot of requests for. Now, while I'm thinking of that, I had somebody in our social media comment, pictures and just kept hitting us up on a specific locomotive that he wanted. And I said, no, we do have that email. And he says, it doesn't work. I keep sending the email and nobody responds. Well, we're not always going to respond to those emails. Keep in mind that is a sorting email. So if one of you says, you know what, I really want, New York Central GP9 with torpedo tubes, letter for the P&E. If that's what you really want, you're going to send that email into our product suggestion email. And that's going to come in. It's almost like a mail sorting system. We put those and we file those away. And then when it comes time for us to run the next time we run GP9s, we look and say, hey, what do people want for road names? And if we get a lot of people asking for GP9s with torpedo tubes, New York Central letter for P&E, then we'll probably do those. But just because we don't respond, that doesn't mean it's broken. So another thing I do want to say too is if you send in a request like that, please don't think that the next announcements we're going to automatically do that request. We typically do our lineup sometimes years in advance. So we try to incorporate as many new roads that have been requested as possible. We can't always hit all of them. Let's see. No Conrail SD38s this time, Lakeshore. Let's see, any other questions on the SD70 series before I move on? A lot of people like those SD70Is. Okay. DJ Model Works comments, thank you for doing the RJ Corman units. I am pumped. I was one who submitted a request. Proof the system works. See, there you have it. I'm sure DG was not the only one to request those, because I do remember John in product development saying that we were getting a lot of requests for those. I think Janik did too. So it does work. If we get enough requests, we can possibly do your favorite locomotive. All right, let's move on to N scale. So N scale guys, pay attention. This is your moment. So we're going to be talking about CA11s. Now, remember earlier in this year, we announced these in HO. A lot of N scale guys were disappointed because they had been seeing the ads since last summer saying, hey, they're going to do these in HO and N. We're ready for a new N scale model. And when we announced the HO scale ones, there was quite a bit of people that were not too happy with us. Well, we were getting our ducks in a row. We were getting things ready. And so now I'm pleased to say that we've got the N scale ones ready for announcements. Let's talk about these for a little bit, and then we'll talk about the ones that we're going to actually produce for this run. Now, as more trains exceeded the Plate C dimensions with taller and taller cars, the caboose, the cupola caboose became ineffective for watching over by train. By borrowing other railroads' cabooses, Union Pacific found that bay windows provided better train visibility, were safer and more comfortable ride in than a cupola. They placed an order for 100 cabooses with International Car Company for a new class of caboose being delivered in 1979. Large protected end porches, 70-ton National Swing motion trucks, elevated toolboxes, oil-fired heat, and hydraulic coupler cushioning were some of the new features that made these cabooses crew favorites. Now, a single CA12 prototype was created with comfort and safety improvements. However, the order was canceled as UP had inherited recently built Rock Island cabooses which were called CA-13s, UP modified the CA-11 fleet with many of these features, creating a subclass of the CA-11. Additional unique modifications were made to these iconic cabooses as they were no longer needed for regular train service, several of which Athearn has created detailed versions of. And now, N-scalers, you get to take part of that. Now, the first ones that you see on your screen, these are the as-delivered CA-11s. This is how they appeared roughly from 1979 when they were built all the way to 1992. Now, inspired by Union Pacific's examination of Missouri Pacific's shop-built bay window cabooses, the CA-11 represents the new last-built cabooses ordered by the Union Pacific. Not having to climb ladders onto a cupola and having features like an icebox, National Swing Motion trucks, and cushion couplers, the ride was compared to the best passenger cars in terms of crew comfort. So if you're modeling 1979 to 1992 at N-scale, and you're modeling the Union Pacific, you have 3 different road numbers to choose from. You can see all 3 there on your screen: 25810, 25823, and 25885. Now, the features of these as-delivered cabooses include an L-angle porch supports, straight steps, unshielded walkway lights, and there are 2 window screen options are included. Now, these didn't stay stock for long. The railroad would go on to modify these and create one of those subset of CA-11, sometimes referred to as a CA-11A. So within a few years, UP CA-11 fleet began to receive modifications based on crew feedback. External changes included the L-angle porch supports being enclosed to reduce injuries. Extra grab irons were added around the doors, steps were changed to reduce fatigue, and walkway lights were now shielded to protect night vision from the bay windows. We're going to offer 3 different road numbers for the modified version as they appeared from 1980 to 1985. Road numbers 25832, 25835, and 25843 will all be included as part of the modified CA-11As. Now, some of the features on these models will include a modified boxed-style porch supports, additional door-side grab irons, lowered and extended steps, shielded walkway lights, side-mounted tack boards, and 2 window screen options are included. We do have versions now, too, that are a little bit even more modern than that. We're going to start with the Madeira Flyer that you see at the top of your screen. This is actually from 2008 to 2012. Now, many CA-11 cabooses, they continued life as shoving platforms. Their large porches are ideal for a comfortable and protected position for such an operation. The long reversing maneuver required for this Fresno, California-based caboose encountered many dangerous road crossings. So in 2008, it was restored with a slight paint scheme variation and the addition of headlights. Now, they are non-functioning on the model, as well as air horn and roof-mounted bell. So again, if you're doing modern stuff, especially if you've got a small N-scale switching layout, or your layout includes some industrial switching and you don't have a siding to perform a runaround, this is perfect for you because the Madeira Flyer is a shoving platform. Now, it's also going to include a roof-mounted Nathan K3 air horn, roof-mounted brass bell, and additional CA-11A prototype features. It's based on a CA-11 modified caboose. Next, we're going to have 2 different road numbers of the Snow Bus. These are 2008 era cabooses. The Union Pacific modified a total of 5 CA-11 cabooses to serve as snow buses. 2 of these had their porches fully enclosed for this assignment. These cars were equipped with MU and signal hoses as they were positioned in the middle of back-to-back locomotives, which amounted to the entire train. The Snow Bus would ferry crews to locations otherwise unreachable in worse weather. Now, if you have purchased the N-scale Big Boy 4014 Excursion locomotive, listen up, because recently 25809 was included in the 2023's Big Boy 4014 Excursion train. So if you've got that in N-scale, you're going to want to pick up 25809 as shown here. We're also going to offer caboose number 25872. Now, the features on these two snow bus variations include the unique body style with the enclosed end porches, and they will feature insulated non-opening windows, MU pedestal and rubber signal hoses unique to these cars, additional center-mounted porch light, and 25809 is going to have the original straight steps, while 25872 has modified steps. Next, we're going to give you some short line options. This is the Idaho Northern and Pacific. Now, we did offer these in HO scale. They're a huge hit. We're going to offer these in N scale as well. This is a 1993 era car. Union Pacific began selling off low traffic branches in the late 1980s. The Idaho Northern Pacific was formed to continue service in eastern Oregon and western edge of Idaho, interchanging with the Union Pacific. They acquired 3 former CA-11A cabooses for their operations in the early 1990s. And we're going to offer 2 road numbers for you, number 46 and number 48. Now, these are former Union Pacific cabooses, and they're based on the CA-11 modifieds or the CA-11As. So they're going to have the same features as the CA-11As that we talked about earlier, just with Idaho, Northern, and Pacific paint. And then finally, N scale guys, you've been asking for this. You've been asking for more modern stuff, new tooling, cabooses, and undecorated. So we've tried to hit as many of those check marks as possible. We're going to be offering these undecorated versions of the CA-11s. These are going to be assembled and unpainted, so they're ready for customization. They're built to the same specifications as the final Union Pacific versions, with the idea that these cabooses entered the secondhand market in greater numbers. So if you have your own short line or your freelance railroad in N scale, here's your opportunity to own a Genesis quality N scale caboose, and you can paint it and decal it any way you want. We're going to be offering 2 different types. The first one that you see at the top of the screen is a CA-11A. This is the modified version. And then the last one is the snow bus version. So if you want to do your own version of the snow bus, you can definitely do that. Now, these do not have DCC or sound. They do not have lighting. However, they are extremely detailed. And for a list of all of those details, head on over to athearn.com, select the new announcements tab, and select PDF for the CA-11s. These have a beautiful interior. Of course, they're going to have brake and rigging, as well as cut levers and air hoses. These are probably going to be some of the most detailed N-scale cabooses on the market. So again, for pricing, contact your dealer for pricing. You can also find your favorite dealer either online, or if you're lucky enough, you've got one that's within driving distance. You have until Friday, April 26th to place your pre-orders with the dealer of your choice. So with that, I've got time for a few more questions on the N scale, as well as any other questions you may have for Athearn, and then I'm going to let you guys get back to some modeling. I'm going to go back a little bit in case there were some questions while I was talking about the N scale cabooses. Charles Woods is very happy with the N scale offerings tonight. Let's see. Charles Woods, I'm not real familiar with that particular caboose, but if a CA-11 UP version would work for SP number 1, we've got the undecorated version for you. I am sure there are decals out there for it. Let's see what else we've got. Richard picked up on that. Yes, these will go great with the 4014 Excursion Big Boy. Charles wants to know, hey Jim, how about L&N, the family line systems in that type of caboose and N scale? So in order for us to do those, even though the modern caboose, and when I say modern, I'm talking pretty much 1950s up until the end, they still weren't quite homogenous. Even if you look at early Burlington Northern cabooses, they were all, a lot of them were ICC cabooses, but Great Northerns would differ slightly from CB&Q and Northern Pacific and likewise. So it's always one of those things that we have to look at. With the CA11s, or specifically a Union Pacific caboose, we have a little bit of leeway. We can do some short lines like I've shown you, but we can't simply just do an Athearn Genesis CA11 caboose and put L&N on it because it wouldn't be correct. In order for us to do that, especially within the Athearn Genesis line, it's going to require new tooling. That's not to say we won't do it. It's just saying that we probably won't do it right away because it's going to take a little bit of time to do all that. Now, that being said, we might do something in the Athearn line, which isn't quite as prototypically realistic. Although with the Athearn line, we try to keep it as realistic as possible. Some requests for SD60s and Genesis. I'm going to assume an HO scale. Some requests for some N scale SD40-2s. Sparky's got a great idea. I like this idea. Put your YouTube channel names on them, paint them up, and send them to your friends. That's a cool idea. A lot of you guys out there, in fact, I watch a lot of your channels, have some great YouTube channels, and some of you have your own railroads. And I know that there's a lot of people that make up stickers for their particular railroad, and there's a exchange going on for that. But how cool would that be to actually have your railroad painted up as a caboose or a freight car, and then transferred amongst your friends on YouTube with the different layouts? Sid, any chances of Buffalo and Pittsburgh SD60Is? Not that I'm aware of, not right away. Benjamin's weekly request for high-side gondola coal rail cars in Central Illinois Public Service. For those that don't know, Benjamin is very determined to have those produced. If we get enough requests, we'll see what happens. Derek wants to know, why don't do special orders? I think you're requesting, why don't we do, if your railroad was the Fair to Midland Railroad and you wanted a boxcar for them, we don't do custom. That's not quite true. We do custom runs. However, most of the custom runs that we do, there are minimums, and they require hundreds upon hundreds of cars. If you're a club or a historical society, talk to us at a show and we can get you in touch with somebody that can get you some quotes, but it does require quite a few cars. And so if it's just a personal layout or something like that, unless you really want over 400 cars, it's usually a pretty big run. But we do actually do some custom orders. Not as many as we used to in the past, but we do that. No, Alexander, you did not miss the SW1001. I think that announcement was yesterday on Monday. This is a good question from Rick Simpson. He wants to know, Jim, regarding the recent SD70 Ace release, will the powered truck assemblies with the new roller bearing caps be available as a replacement for the previous 3 UP Heritage SD70 Aces? Rick, I'm going to say no, as like an additional part. So if you want to retrofit those locomotives that you currently have, we will have replacement parts in our service area, but those are really reserved for warranties, things of that nature. Now, I could be wrong. I'll have to check with product development, but as of this writing, we don't have an actual kit like we've done with some other parts where there's a retrofit kit to upgrade a previous locomotive to a new standard. I hope that answers your question, but I will ask PD and see if if they've done that. Last that I knew, they had not made that decision. Elijah wants to know, any chance we could get an HO scale Genesis CN standard cab SD60? Well, there's always a chance. It's always a chance. If you haven't done so yet, go ahead and shoot us an email at athearn-productsuggestions@athearn.com. Put it in there. Again, we're not going to respond right away, but we're going to know that that is something that you guys are wanting, especially if we get a bunch of your modelers that have the same mindset. Then we're going to know where we're going to put our development cost and development efforts. Rodney wants to know, any plans to do anything new in Northern Pacific Power or equipment? We'll probably be doing some more later this year. Northern Pacific continues to be a popular road, so we'll probably see some more later this year. Frank S. wants to know, hey Jim, will this new run of SD70Ms have lit number boards, truck lights, and walkway lights? Not on this run, no. We're still going through, I think you've probably heard John from product development say his goal is to get all of those features into Genesis locomotives, but it's going to take some time. It may seem pretty simple to just take a standard model and put those lighting features in it, but it does actually take quite a bit of engineering as far as how the molds are done. And John is working both on that upgrade as well as other upgrades. Plus, he's working on some new stuff. And that reminds me too, somebody before the program started, they wanted to know an update on the RX 500 project. Last year at the National Train Show, we announced the Republic RX 500 switchers. And I can tell you that we're pretty close to announcing those. We will announce those this year. It'll probably be before the summer ends. So stay tuned. They are being worked on, and they are going to be a completely new model from the ground up. Darby says, I see Janet posted a photo of the one locomotive on Facebook too. Too bad you're not doing the Olympic units. Well, bug us over at Athearn Product Suggestions at athearn.com. You never know. Sparky wants to know, will Athearn ever put smoke units in their diesels? I can tell you that with this group of product development personnel, no, we are not going to do that. We're going to concentrate more on lighting features and other sound features. We're not going to be doing smoke units in our locomotives. I got time for one or two more questions, and then I am going to let you guys get back to some modeling. Thank you for the kind words on what we do here at Athearn. We do appreciate it. Derek, don't worry. Sometimes if you're on a cell phone or something of that nature, sometimes autocorrect will get you. Rick, you are more than welcome. Thanks for being a fan. All right. Got that smoke unit question for you. I'm going down to see if there's anything else that you guys would like to ask real quick. All right. We will end with Ed. He has got a list of questions. He says, why the flip? I would have given you bonus points if he had said frac. Anybody know where that came from? Can't Athearn make a scale SDP40 GN green, GN sky blue, Centennial red, white, BN sky blue patch, BN orange? Wow, there's a list for you. Well, first step you can do is you can send us an Athearn product suggestion email. Second thing is if you've got some information that you're willing to provide us to make sure that those are accurate, we'd also request that you get in touch with us. One of the things I like to remind folks at shows is you may be an expert on your railroad's locomotive, However, our product developers, and myself included, are not experts on every single locomotive ever designed, built, used by major railroads, sold off to other railroads, and subsequently repainted sometimes 15 times over. Locomotives can be a very interesting subject, and they can sometimes be the subject for debate. Now, the Athearn product developers spend most of their time doing research on stuff, but if you've got stuff that will add to the authenticity of the finished model, by all means, we would like to talk to you. We're modelers too. We want to make sure that the products that we do produce are up to not only our standards, but your standards as well. So hopefully that answers your question. And yes, you are right, Terry. This is a good reminder. Historical Society would be happy to help out. If you haven't joined a historical society, I highly suggest that you do. It's a great way to enjoy your model railroad empire even more. And one last reminder, I'm going to be at the Rocky Mountain Train Show this coming weekend in Denver, Colorado. You've probably seen the posts on Facebook and social media. And if you haven't seen the interview with John Gardberg on the show of the Athearn Extra, go ahead and take a look at that. Links are in that video description about attending the show. If you've never been, it's a great show to go to. And if you're a rail fan, there's plenty of rail fan activities, museums. There's a lot to see. Weather looks like it's going to be pretty decent, probably in the 50s. Hopefully no snow, but check it out if you've never been there before. It's a great show. There's a lot of great layouts to see. And of course, I'm going to be there. And then don't forget either, Friday at 4 o'clock, we're myself and George from Soundtracks, we're going to be over at Rocky Mountain Train Supply. And we're going to have a live meet and greet as well as a quick tech tips video on setting up your Athearn Genesis locomotive for digital dynamic exhaust. Should be a good time. Come on out and see me either at Rocky Mountain Train Supply or at the show at Rocky Mountain Train Show. I hope to see you there. Don't forget, if you come to the show, we've got these special Union Pacific 6900 DDA40X stickers. They're limited to 100. They're only for attendees of the show. First 100 gets a sticker. So until I see you either at the Rocky Mountain Train Show or in another video, I want everybody out there to be happy, be healthy, do some good modeling, and above all, high greens. Take care, everyone.